What's up, everyone? So, Velma is finally over, and I'm here to talk about the final two episodes. If you would like to go back and see my thoughts on episodes 1 through 8, I will have a playlist in the description that you can check out and go back and watch those previous videos. That being said, I will be going with spoilers like I did in those previous videos that you may or may not have seen, and I will continue on from there. Now, if you are someone who doesn't want to be spoiled about Velma, then alright, good for you, then goodbye, and come back when you finish watching the episode. If you're someone who doesn't care, which like the majority of people are, then welcome. And if you're someone who happens to have seen the show already, then congratulations, we have shared trauma now. So, Velma, episode 9. We're going to start with that, go in order. Episode 9 is my least favorite episode in the sense of that it's pointless. It's not the episode that pissed me off the most about the series. It is the episode that I think is the least relevant in the existence of the show. You could easily have the major events of the end of the episode be placed at the end of episode 8, and everything would still basically happen the same. Because this whole episode is that Velma's mom has amnesia, and they say that her diagnosis is if she gets stressed out over the next 72 hours, she will lose her memory permanently just for the duration of when she was kidnapped. So they won't find out who the serial killer is. So Velma is trying to lie to her mom about the state of affairs of her life to keep her calm and relaxed so she doesn't forget her memory. Now, first strike is that Velma's mom tends to regain her memories more when she's stressed. At least that's how it felt to me in the scenes where like her memories started coming back. And like, I don't understand how you mess that up given the fact that like that's the antithesis of what you said would happen to her, but it is what it is. So that's a strike, but a positive. I did say in a previous video that if Velma's mom isn't the actual killer, I will applaud the show. So you did one good thing. You didn't make it blatantly obvious that Velma's mom would be the killer. And now to dock it another point, the fact that you can't like figure out who the killer is throughout the course of the show is kind of ridiculous. Like all the evidence of like who the killer is doesn't pop up until the last episode of the show. Like all the little breadcrumbs for like who the killer potentially could be doesn't happen until the last episode of the show, and it's for the dumbest reason ever. I'll get to it when I get to it, but focusing more on episode 9, this episode ends with Velma loses all of her friends. Fred, Daphne, and Norville, they all end up severing ties with Velma for one reason or another, and Dia, her mom, admits to being the serial killer. That's the cliffhanger of episode 9. You could place that at the end of episode 8, because everything goes wrong in episode 8, and like everyone's like in a hectic, pissed off mood. So like you could easily have had Norville be like, you know what? After all this, I'm done. Same thing with Daphne and Fred. They all could have just been like, I'm done with Velma because we're in this predicament because of your investigations and everything to do with your mom. So like we can't do this anymore. We're done. And that could have left her all alone. And Dia could have been like, instead of like, I have amnesia, it'd be like, I'm the serial killer. And then that would have put us in the same spot we're in at the end of episode 9, leading into episode 10. So this episode doesn't need to exist at all. And because of that, that's why I just can't stand it. I hate wasted time. It's something that's ingrained in me because I love anime. Filler is something that happens in like long-running anime all the time, and that's literally why people create lists of episodes you don't have to watch. I'm someone who looks up those lists when I watch long-running anime. I watch filler in One Piece, I watch filler in Naruto, Dragon Ball, Black Clover. I didn't even get to watch Black Clover. I just read it because I just didn't want to deal with any potential filler. Boruto, I literally started reading it because it started off with like seasons of filler. I just couldn't deal with it. I hate filler. I've hated it ever since I was a kid, ever since it ruined my watch of Bleach for the first time. I didn't know filler was a thing when I was that young, and I got hit in the middle of the Arankar arc in Bleach with a filler arc that had nothing to do with anything that was going on, and I didn't know what was going on. It dragged on forever, and that's why I hate filler. So I have it ingrained in me to not like wasted time in episodes, and this whole episode is just a waste of time. None of it needs to exist. Now, leading into episode 10, stuff that happens in episode 10 contradicts stuff that happens in episode 9 and 8, as well as having mean-spirited jokes towards Scooby-Doo franchise as a whole. This episode just can't get its head on straight. So, in episode 10, we learn that Dia was hypnotized into doing all of the serial killings and stuff like that, and they have a mental block from the hypnosis about revealing who the real killer is. Now, that being said, Dia seems to be self-aware that she's been hypnotized. She can say that she's been hypnotized, but she can't say who the killer is, which is just like, if you can actively tell someone you've been hypnotized, like, couldn't you arguably get a hypnotist to break the hypnotism? Like, couldn't you get hypnotized to, like, I, I'm thinking just too much into this, but like, the fact that she's able to know that she's hypnotized and say it to someone is ridiculous, in the aspect of, like, she said she had amnesia, which that wasn't a part of the hypnosis. She was like, I don't remember. And then in the next episode where it's like, oh, my memory came back, she's like, oh, actually, I've been hypnotized and I can't say who the killer is. So, like, why? Like, that completely contradicts the whole thing of, like, oh, I don't remember who the killer is. Now it's, oh, I physically cannot say who the killer is because I was hypnotized by the killer. And it's like, all right, okay, show. Okay. And another thing is that in episode 8, the brains, when Velma asks them if they know who the killer is, they're like, no, we don't know who the killer is. We didn't see their face. Then in episode 10, the brains tell Velma, they're like, you have a serial killer mom and everything, as if like they knew that it was her the whole time. That's how it came off to me. I know it's potentially could be that, that Velma's mom is like on the news and everything now, that they're a killer, but I don't know. Just the way they said it just made it feel like they remembered that it was her mom, and I don't know, I just took it weird. It's just kind of like, you don't remember. You said you don't know who the killer is, which kind of like puts us in this weird spot, but whatever. That's just a nitpick. It's nothing serious. That's just a nitpick. But a nitpick amongst a storm of bad is great. So during this episode, everyone's separated. Velma's like, I have to figure out who the killer is, which, like, this episode's only like 20 something minutes, so all this stuff happens really fast. Norville, he leaves. He goes to like his perfect dream school where like everything will be great. It's like a fantasy Hogwarts-esque academy where like kids are fighting with swords and doing like fake magic and everything, and they're just enjoying themselves. And it's like Norville's like, oh, this is my home. I can't wait to be here. Daphne and Fred, they ended up losing connection with Velma because they faked a popular relationship to become popular again, since they ended up becoming losers in episode 9 due to like some nonsense, and that caused Velma to be upset with them. And now Velma is like trying to like figure out what happened to her mom and amend things, and she ends up finally listening to the voicemails that Norville left her, which, like, he's left her a year's worth of voicemail that she never listened to, which, like, I'm sorry, that pulls me up too hard. There's no way your phone has that much space to have like a year's worth of voicemails saved on it and still have space to do regular functioning. I don't believe it has that much space. That's like a computer's level of hard drive space if it's able to do that. Nevertheless, Velma finally sits down. She's like, oh man, maybe I do suck as a person. And she listens to Norville's voicemails or VMs, whatever, and she finally feels something towards him. She realizes he's a good friend. She calls him and she like spills her guts out to him, and she's like, I love you, Norville. And she's like, well, I mean, like, whatever. And then, the episode continues. It's just bum rushed so much into this. It's hard to talk about because there's just so much in this episode because they wasted so much time throughout the rest of the show. So like Fred's mom, she's the killer. There's no point in like sugarcoating like what happens at the end. Fred's mom is the killer. It's because she wanted to take a hot girl's mind, her words not mine, and put it in the body of Fred because she wants a beautiful woman who would know what to do with the power of being a rich white man. And it's just like, it's one thing to have your ideals in a show. It's another thing for them to just be so annoying and like blatantly vomited to the audience. Like, it's not like subtly, there are rich white guys that are bad in Velma, but it's just like the show frames it as like every man in the show is bad except Norville. So it's just like, it's just irritating that this is the big twist. This is why the killer did everything. It's because she's like, a woman needs to be in the body of a rich white man so that she can utilize that power properly and take over the world. And it's just like, uh, that's just ridiculous, man. I have no words, honestly. So that's the whole point of the killer in Velma. That's the whole big twist about it. And you know, I honestly don't know what to say here. Like, it's just so stupid. It's just so dumb. They have mean spirited jokes about Scooby Doo in the episode as well. Like with the mystery machine, they call it a sex van, and it's just like, why, why, what is the why? So anyway, trying to like focus up more on the episode. So like I said, everyone's separated. Everyone works things out over the course of the episode. Sort of, they work things out with Velma so that they all meet up in the episode. And like Velma learns something that like when Fred gets angry, he gets like Hulk strength, which like that plays into effect at the end of the episode, where like Fred is chained up and Velma pisses him off, and he breaks free. Also, I forgot to mention that Fred's mom wanted Daphne's mind to be in Fred originally, and she was like, "Oh, right, hot girls don't know the prejudice or what it means to control the power of a rich white man. So, like Velma Dinkley, you're actually the perfect candidate to be in Fred instead of Daphne." So she decides she wants to dissect Velma's mind and put it into Fred instead of Daphne because since Velma grew up ugly and poor and a woman, she would understand better how to utilize the power of a rich white man, which, like, just a quick tangent. I heard there's a new show coming out on Amazon Prime that's called, like, Power or something like that, something along those lines. Um, and it's supposed to be a show where, like, girls gain superpowers and, like, there's supposed to be, like, a paradigm shift in, like, the masculinity aspect of like gender roles and everything. So like women basically have like the power and like men don't anymore. And like it's supposed to like depict this in a really well aspect. At least that's what I've heard from like people that have read the book that it's based off of. And it's just like it's funny how like Amazon's about to release a show that is probably going to handle with tact this very concept more than Velma is, and it's based off of like a franchise that people like. I just find that really funny. Now I could be wrong about this, but like it just is the first thing that popped into my head when I thought about what happened here. Hell, even sticking with Amazon, if you've seen The Boys, they deal with like this paradigm shift in the relationship between Huey and Starlight in the latest season of The Boys. Like Huey feels inferior because Starlight has power and he feels like he can't protect her or anything, and he has to learn to come to terms with that over the course of the season. And he's shown to be right. That, like coming to terms, like it's fine that she can be a girl and powerful. That's fine. And like he doesn't need to have all the power. And like it's not true that men have all of the power. So like the idea that Velma doesn't really do anything tactful with it. They're just like, no, men have all the power. So like I'm gonna put the body of a girl who hates her life in the body of a man, and everything's gonna be fine. It's just really really bad. Like it doesn't do anything to benefit society, which like shows don't need to, but like if you're telling a message like that, obviously you're trying to like jab at people's like thought process of how things work, and I don't like it. Anyway, Norville comes back at the end of the episode. He ends up saving everybody. uh Fred's mom dies. The mystery gang, they're formed, but they all hate each other. So like they all stop, Fred's mom. They're all honored as heroes in Crystal Cove for stopping the serial killer, but they all hate each other. Norville and Fred hate each other because Fred's pissed off that Norville accidentally killed Fred's mom because like Norville deflected a bullet. He deflected a bullet. I just want to make that clear. This man took out a sword and deflected a bullet, and the show is too serious to have Scooby Doo in it. Just want to let you sit with that for a moment. So, he deflects the bullet and ends up knocking down a pillar, and it kills Fred's mom. So Fred hates Norville. Daphne hates I don't remember. I don't remember the dynamics of like why they all hated each other. They just did. I don't care to go back and rewatch the episode. I'm just over this. So they all end up hating each other more or less by the end of the episode. Velma kind of works out her stuff with like everybody, kinda. So that happens. Fred ends up forming the mystery gang, but like it's just him by himself. He like paints the van like terribly because obviously it's supposed to be like a big thing. Like, oh, when they finally become the Scooby Gang, it's gonna get painted correctly and blah 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 blah. So like he paints it and he's like, I'm a spook hunter or whatever the heck it said on the side of the van, and it's because Fred believes that his mom was possessed by a ghost because he's stupid, so he can't come to terms with the fact that his mom hated his guts and wanted to replace his brain with somebody else's. So he thinks his mom was possessed, which like I'm assuming is what leads him to forming this ghost hunting thing so he could prove that his mom was possessed by a ghost. They don't really explain it because they don't have time. The episode's ending at this point. Um, Daphne is like training how to fight in martial arts because it's something she does. Uh, Norville is back in Crystal Cove or whatever, and he finds some mysterious thing or whatever. Same thing with Velma. It doesn't really matter. The episode just ends on like a cliffhanger, like, oh no, there's going to be something else. There's going to be another killer, and like I thought that at the very least, this show would have had the gall to show who the next killer is going to be. I thought the next killer was going to be an iconic Scooby-Doo villain because they put such an emphasis on ghosts not being real in this season that most likely, if the show does get renewed for another season, like the allegations are saying, a person in like a ghost, costume will be the killer. And I was assuming, because at the end of the episode, the sheriff throughout the whole season, he's like putting away the case file at the end. He's like, ghosts aren't real or whatever and stuff like that. And then like the lights flicker and then someone kills him. I thought they were going to show it was going to be like the pirate ghost. And that was going to be like the killer for the next season. I thought they would have shown them like, they're going to be like, ghosts aren't real. And then it's like the lights were going to flicker. And then you were going to see the pirate ghost. It's going to be like, oh, wow, the pirate ghost is going to be the antagonist of season 2 of Velma if it actually happens. But like, they didn't even have the guts to show who the killer was going to be. Like, the show is so spineless. Like, it jabs at all of these things with society and like ignore that. It goes through all these things of like talking about society and like how men have all the power and like women don't, and like Indian women stink and stuff like that, from like all the weird jokes that they have about that are in the show. And like they don't focus on like being a Scooby-Doo show. They take pot shots at it and everything like that. Like the show is just so mean spirited. And then like even at the end when it's leaving a cliffhanger, it didn't have the guts to go all the way and like actually have like a impactful cliffhanger that like even if you pissed off fans enough to this degree, they still would have been excited about it. Because, like, that's how I was. Perfect example. I don't like Batman v Superman very much. I don't like the way they portrayed Superman and Batman in that movie. I'm not a big fan of the way their characters are portrayed. I made a video talking about how continuity messed up the Snyderverse. If you want to check that out, I'll put the link in the description. But anyway, I did not like that movie very much. And even though I didn't like it, by the end of the movie, where like they teased the fact that they were going to have a Justice League movie, and that they did the death of Superman, and that he was going to come back, and then like they could do a movie about like Reign of Superman or like Darkseid coming, I was still excited to see the Justice League movie that came out later on. And I actually did like Zack Snyder's Justice League, to be specific. So like, even though I didn't like that movie, the tease of the future of things that I do like made me excited. And I feel like Velma could have just went all the way with that. If they would have shown the pirate ghost, then even though people would have been pissed off for the show, some little nugget of nostalgia inside of them would have been excited to see what the show would do with having a mature version of the pirate ghost that actually kills people. So they couldn't even go all the way with that. And the pirate ghost isn't the only ghost type Scooby-Doo villain. It's just the most notable one that I can think of off the top of my head. They had what is he? The scuba diver one. I always mess up. I always call him Miner 49er, but that's not Miner 49er. The scuba ghost. Like he was there as like a joke in an earlier episode. So it's like, like they had him as like a brief gag, but like you couldn't even commit to having like one of the iconic villains show up as like the final thing to end season 1. It's like, come on, man. So like at the end of the day, overall, this show is not very good. It clearly did not want to be a Velma show. I've heard that Mindy Kaling originally pitched the show to be a completely different kind of show, and I feel like if it was what it was trying to be, it would have been great. Which like the show is very much trying to be a parody on like CW teen dramas, which like if it was an animated parody of teen dramas, that would have been fine. But the fact that they had to slap the Scooby-Doo IP on it makes it 100% worse because these people obviously didn't want to make a Scooby-Doo show. And you can tell that throughout like everything in it, through like the jokes, the way everything's happening, the design of the characters and everything. Like nothing in the show shows that it likes Scooby-Doo in the slightest bit. And that is just a true and honest shame. So with that being the case, you as a fan of Scooby-Doo going into the show, you're not going to have a good time. You as someone who wanted to go and seeing a teen parody of like CW teen dramas and stuff like that, you're not going to have a good time because it's not funny. The show isn't funny. It's as simple as that. Like, they don't tell jokes. They just point out issues that could be used as jokes, as I mentioned in previous episodes. They just state facts. And then the fact that they pointed out the fact in kind of like a flanderized way is supposed to be the joke. But it's not a joke. Me just saying something isn't a joke. That doesn't make it funny. That just means I pointed it out to you and you're not going to laugh at it. It's just like, that was it? That was it? There's no punchline? Oh, I'm sorry. I was expecting there to be a punchline to it. But no. So that's really all there is to it. You know, I know people can go about saying the show is like hyper woke and like that's kind of what they were going for and everything like that. Honestly, I don't think that's what they were going for with the show. I don't think they diversified this show because they wanted it to be woke or anything like that. I think the show has a diverse cast because that's what Mindy Kaling wanted for her show. Like, if these rumors are true, the original concept of the show being like a parody of teen dramas, this is probably just the cast that wanted for it. And then it had to be Scooby-Doo, so now it's just the way it is. So, like, hypothetically, that's what I believe. If not, it could just be hyper woke and or whatever you want to say. And, like, that's why the characters were diversified in the way they were and so on and so forth. And, you know, their personalities were altered for, like, you know, clickbaity things. Like, something I didn't mention at the end of episode 10, they teased the fact that Norville, to deal with his stress, he's going to start smoking weed, which is going to make him go from Norville to Shaggy in, like, a future season if it does come out. You know, stuff like that. But it is what it is. Velma's not good. If you've seen it, again, we share that trauma. If you haven't seen it, I'm glad you took the time to watch this video to hear my thoughts about why it was bad and why you don't need to watch it. I appreciate that greatly. And if you're someone who just didn't care, well, thank you for checking this out as well. And I think that's really all I have to say. Velma is finally complete. If you guys want me to make another video on this, I don't know, just like giving a focused discussion on like just the core problems of it instead of going episode by episode, leave a comment down below. Or better yet, you can leave a comment having me talk about maybe my favorite Scooby-Doo movie of all time, Cyber Chase, if you want to hear about that, or a suggestion for a future review of whatever in the future. I said future a lot of times there. Future. Whatever. So that's all I have for today. We're finally done with Velma. And last but not least, I'm the innocent villain, your innocent until proven villainous, and I will catch you next time.